So cerebellum is also known as little brain in Latin, and it is the dorsal and largest part of the hindbrain or rhombencephalon. Its weight is about 150 gram, and it is the posterior, it lies in the posterior cranial fossa below the tentorium cerebelli. Tentorium cerebelli is a fold of dura mater you have seen in viscera, the head neck viscera, and it lies behind the pons and medulla oblongata, and the fourth ventricle separates the cerebellum from the pons and upper part of medulla oblongata. Okay, and it is separated from the cerebrum by the tentorium cerebellum. So these are the location and different relations of the cerebellum. Next we are going to function. Cerebellum cannot initiate the motor activity, but it modifies the motor activities and makes them smooth, fine and more efficient. So cerebellum performs these three primary functions. It helps in maintenance of the posture, maintenance of muscle tone and fine coordination of movements. So we were discussing the function. It helps in maintenance of posture, maintenance of muscle tone and fine coordination of the movements. What is the cavity of the cerebellum? The fourth ventricle separates the cerebellum from the pons and upper part of the medulla oblongata. So, fourth ventricle forms the cavity of the cerebellum. Next is the cerebellar peduncles. This peduncle cerebellum is connected with the brainstem by three pairs of large white fibers called the cerebellar peduncles. These are the peduncles: superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle, inferior cerebellar peduncle. Superior cerebellar peduncle connects with midbrain. Middle one connects with pons, and inferior cerebellar peduncle connects with medulla oblongata. Okay, so these are the three connections. See here, this is midbrain, pons and medulla. So brainstem is lying in front of the cerebellum. This is cerebellum. This is cut portion of the vermis, and this is cerebellar hemisphere. And this is tent-like structure is the fourth ventricle. So fourth ventricle lies between the cerebellum and the brainstem. Okay, this is cavity of the cerebellum. So this is the summarization. Part of cerebellum is part of the rhombencephalon, 150 gram in weight. Location lies in the posterior cranial fossa below the tentorium cerebelli, behind the pons, medulla and fourth ventricle. Okay. And what is the function? It has extrapyramidal activities: maintenance of posture, muscle tone and coordination of the fine movement. So these are the functions of cerebellum. And these are the connections via three peduncles, cerebellar peduncles. Superior one connects with midbrain, middle connects with pons, inferior connects with the medulla oblongata. Next we are going to external features. Okay, external is shape. First shape is oval shaped, flattened from above downwards, and its transverse diameter is larger than the anteroposterior diameter. The surface of the cerebellum shows numerous features. Okay, and these are the identification feature. It has three parts: two cerebellar hemispheres and one vermis. Vermis is located in the midline. There are two surfaces: superior surface and inferior surface, two notches, anterior and posterior notch, and three prominent fissures: horizontal fissure, posterolateral fissure and fissura prima. These are the three fissures. See here, this is schematic diagram of the cerebellum. This is fissura prima. This is horizontal fissure and this is posterolateral fissure. So anterior to this fissura prima, this part is included in the anterior lobe. Posterior to the fissura prima and anterior to this posterolateral fissure, whole of this part forms the posterior lobe or middle lobe, and this is forming posterior to this posterolateral fissure, this nodule in the midline and this flocculus connected via these stems. These are together forming the flocculonodular lobe. So cerebellum has three lobes, anterior lobe, posterior lobe or middle lobe, and flocculonodular lobe separated by fissura prima and posterolateral fissure. Another important fissure is horizontal fissure. This is horizontal fissure. Horizontal fissure separates the superior surface from the inferior surface. So this part is forming superior surface. Here is the inferior surface. And you can see midline there is the vermis on the two sides, two hemispheres. Okay. So this is the separation for superior surface and inferior surface, this horizontal fissure. So parts of the cerebellum, external features are important for your viscera table, okay. Cerebellum is frequently given viscera in your viscera table, important for your viva. So it has two cerebellar hemispheres and median vermis. Surfaces are two surface, superior surface is convex, inferior surface you can see a deep notch known as vallecula, and sulcus valleculi separates the vermis from the cerebellar hemispheres. Next there are notches. Anterior notch is V-shaped and lodges the pons and medulla, and posterior notch is deep and lodges the falx cerebelli. Falx cerebelli is projection of the dura mater separates two cerebellar hemispheres. Next we are going to fissures. Fissures are important fissures. Horizontal fissure, posterolateral fissure, fissura prima. And folia. What is folia? Folia is asked in your viva. Folia is leaf-like lamella separated by the fissures. Okay. You have seen the surface of the cerebellum. Multiple fissures are there. In between the fissures, the portion of the cerebellum is known as the folia. Okay. Next is lobes. Three lobes are there, anterior lobe, posterior lobe and flocculonodular lobes. So these are the parts we will discuss in details. So two cerebellar hemispheres, the two lateral portions, and vermis is narrow median portion that connects the two cerebellar hemispheres. Surfaces are superior surface is convex, superior vermis, that is superior part of vermis is continuous with the superior surface of the cerebellar hemispheres. And inferior surface, it has a deep groove or notch in the median plane and which is called vallecula. Okay, and vallecula is known as vallecula cerebelli, that means groove in Latin. Vallecula means groove. Okay, it is a deep notch on the inferior surface that separates the cerebellar hemispheres. Sulcus valleculi, it is a sulcus that separates the inferior vermis from the inferior surface of the cerebellar hemispheres, and it is the lateral limit of the vallecula. Okay. Next are the notches. Anterior cerebellar notch is wide, shallow, V-shaped notch on the anterior part of cerebellum, lodges the pons and medulla, and posterior cerebellar notch, it is deep and narrow and lodges the falx cerebelli, which is a fold of dura mater. Okay. So these are the notches and their contents. Next we are going to the fissures. There are numerous transversely running furrows of varying depth on the cerebellar surfaces. What is folia? These are narrow, leaf-like lamella separated by the fissures. And each folium consists of core of white matter covered by the grey matter, like the cerebrum. Okay, inner core is white matter and outside grey matter. Three fissures are prominent and consistent, and they are these: horizontal fissure, posterolateral fissure, primary fissure or fissura prima. Horizontal fissure separates the superior and inferior surface of the cerebellum. You have seen in the previous picture, and posterolateral fissure lies on the inferior surface of cerebellum and separates the flocculonodular lobe from the rest of the cerebellum, that is corpus cerebelli. And fissura prima or primary fissure, it is V-shaped fissure on the superior surface with its apex directed posteriorly, and the cerebellum is divided into two parts by the posterolateral fissure. flocculonodular lobe and corpus cerebelli. Corpus cerebelli is divided into anterior and posterior lobes by the fissura prima. Okay. So we are getting this structure cerebellum first from above downward. You imagine that previous picture. You will first get the anterior lobe, then fissura prima, then posterior lobe, then posterolateral fissure, and last flocculonodular lobe, lowermost. Okay. What is tonsil? Tonsil of this cerebellum. These terms are asked in your viva table. It is the part of cerebellum on its inferior surface, and in raised intracranial pressure, the tonsils may protrude into the foramen magnum. Okay, that's why it is important, this tonsil part. See here this schematic presentation. Here we are seeing the subdivisions of the vermis. The midline part is the vermis, subdivision of vermis, and corresponding areas of the hemispheres on the two sides of the vermis. So first part of vermis is lingula. Okay, it has no corresponding part of the hemisphere. Second is central lobule. Its corresponding part is ala for the cerebellar hemisphere. Next is Kalman. Its corresponding part is quadrangular lobule. After that is declive. Its corresponding part is simplex lobule. Next is folium, and near it lies the superior semilunar lobule. Next we are getting the horizontal fissure. Here we are getting the fissura prima. Here is horizontal fissure. Below the horizontal fissure, part of vermis is tuber, and cerebral hemisphere you are getting inferior semilunar lobule on the inferior surface. Next you are getting the pyramid. Corresponding to pyramid is the biventral lobule, and here is the uvula. On two sides of uvula you are getting the tonsils. Okay, tonsils are the projecting part on the inferior surface, and it projects into the foramen magnum in case of raised intracranial pressure. So these tonsils are lying opposite to this uvula, corresponding part of the uvula. Next is flocculonodular leaf is formed by nodule in the midline forming part of the vermis, and on the two side you are getting flocculus. Okay. So this is superior surface of the cerebellum. You can see the superior surface of this is vermis, midline portion is vermis. Vermis is in the same plane as the superior surface of the hemispheres. This is fissura prima, and this is horizontal fissure. Okay. So these lines, multiple lines you can see. These are the fissures, and these fissures are separating these thin lobules. These thin lobules are known as the folium. Okay. And notches you can see, the anteriorly the superior cerebellar notch is V-shaped, posterior cerebellar notch is deep, and here lies the falx cerebelli. Okay, understood? This is inferior view. Inferior view, the vermis is separated from the hemisphere by deep depression. The deep depression is known as the vallecula. Okay, and here you can see the flocculonodular lobe. This is flocculus. Here will be the nodule, and this is cavity of the fourth ventricle. And this is projecting part is the cerebellar tonsil, inferior surface of the cerebellar hemispheres, midline portion is the vermis, and these are the three peduncles. Okay, superior, middle, inferior cerebellar peduncle connecting it with the midbrain pons and medulla. Okay. So there are several fissures that divide the cerebellum into a number of subdivisions, and practical differentiation of these subdivisions on gross specimen is sometimes difficult. All the fissures you cannot demarcate all the lobules. So hence it is suggested to identify at least these three lobes, anterior, posterior and flocculonodular lobes. These are three lobes, cerebellar hemisphere and the vermis. This you must know. Next, Ball's simplex lobule is also called posterior quadrangular lobule. Okay. These are the subdivisions of vermis, lobes of the cerebellum and corresponding part of the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay. In the anterior lobe, you are getting these three parts of vermis: lingula, central lobule, culmen. Corresponding to lingula have no corresponding part. Central lobule, ala, culmen is quadrangular lobule. In the posterior lobe, you are getting part of vermis is declive, folium, tuber, pyramid, uvula. Declive near the declive simplex lobule, folium superior semilunar lobule, tuber inferior semilunar lobule, pyramid biventral lobule, and uvula tonsil. And in the flocculonodular lobe, you are getting part of vermis is nodule and part of hemisphere is flocculus. Okay. And so you can remember this subdivision of the vermis from this mnemonic. Okay. Lazy cat, die for, taka pizza unnecessarily. So first words we are using. Lazy L is lingula, C is central lobule and culmen, then D is declive, folium, F is folium, T is tuber, then pyramid, P is pyramid, then U is uvula and N is nodule. Okay. Next we are discussing the lobes, divided into three lobes by two fissures. Anterior lobe lies on the superior surface, anterior to fissura prima. Posterior or middle lobe lies partly on the superior surface, partly on the inferior surface. It lies behind the fissura prima on the superior surface and extends from posterolateral fissure to the horizontal fissure on the inferior surface of the cerebellum. Next, flocculonodular lobe, it is a small lobe and that lies on the inferior side of the cerebellum and it lies anterior to the posterolateral fissure. Okay, so these are the three lobes of the cerebellum. Lobes are very frequently asked in your viva table. Okay, lobes, fissures, parts of vermis, all these are asked, and this tonsil and its importance. Next, we are going to phylogenetic subdivisions of cerebellum. This is important for your theory. Okay, it comes as a short note or part of the long question. Phylogenetic subdivisions. So, based on function and phylogenetic evolutionary aspect, cerebellum is divided into these three parts: archicerebellum or vestibulocerebellum, paliocerebellum or spinocerebellum, and neocerebellum or cerebellar cerebellum, cerebral cerebellum. Okay, so we have done color coding for these three parts in this diagram. So the pink portion represents the archicerebellum. It includes the flocculonodular lobe and lingula. Okay. Next, we are going to paliocerebellum. It is colored as blue colored. Okay. So pyramid and uvula of the vermis, and here central lobule, culmen, and their corresponding part are forming the paliocerebellum. Next, neocerebellum. The whole of the yellow portion, all the rest of the portion is forming the neocerebellum. Okay, this is the neocerebellum develops. This is the most recent part of the cerebellum. Higher functions of the cerebellum is mostly done by this neocerebellum. So we will discuss this in detail. So archicerebellum or vestibulocerebellum, it is the oldest part of the cerebellum and consists of flocculonodular lobe and lingula. Flocculonodular lobe and lingula. What is the function? It helps in maintenance of body equilibrium, tone and posture of the trunk muscles. Okay. Next is paliocerebellum or spinocerebellum. It develops after archicerebellum, consists of anterior lobe except the lingula. Here this part, anterior lobe in front of this fissura prima except the lingula and this pyramid and uvula. Okay, uvula and pyramid of the vermis. What is the function? It receives impulses through the spinocerebellar tracts and maintain the tone, posture and crude movements of the limbs. So this is function of paliocerebellum or spinocerebellum. Next is neocerebellum or cerebral cerebellum. It is phylogenetically it develops last, that is it is most recent part of the cerebellum, and it consists of the posterior lobe except the pyramid and uvula. Okay, this pyramid and uvula included in spinocerebellum. Next, functions, it coordinates the smooth performance of the skilled voluntary movement. Okay, this is function of neocerebellum. So archicerebellum is the oldest part, and it was only the part of cerebellum in fishes and lower amphibians. They have only archicerebellum. Paleocerebellum is seen in with archicerebellum in reptiles and birds, and neocerebellum is prominent in the higher mammals. Okay. Next, so we have discussed the external features of the cerebellum and its phylogenetic subdivisions. Next, we are going to the internal features. Internal features are also for your histology features. Histology of cerebellum is also important. Comes in your short note, okay? So cerebellum is highly folded to accommodate millions of neurons in a small area, and these foldings are called arbor vitae. Okay, arbor vitae means tree-like branching. Arbor vitae. So cerebellum is having outer gray matter, that is cerebellar cortex, inner white matter, that is cerebellar medulla. Cerebellar nuclei are there, gray matter embedded deep in the medulla. Within the cerebellar medulla, some portions of gray matter are embedded, they are forming cerebellar nuclei. Cerebellar cortex is uniform throughout, and the cerebellar cortex shows three layers: outer molecular layer, middle Purkinje cell layer, and inner granular layer. So we will discuss these three layers. These three layers are important. You have to write in your histology picture of the cerebellum. Okay. So we will discuss these three layers in details. So molecular layer lies just deep to the pia mater, and it is lightly stained layer with He stain, hematoxylin eosin staining, and it consists of few cells and more fibers. Cells are molecular layers have stellate cells in the superficial part and few basket cells in the deeper part. And fibers are molecular layer shows numerous branching processes of the Purkinje cells, actions of the granule cells and climbing fibers. See here, this is folding, multiple foldings of the cerebellum. So you can see the three layers. This up to this is the cortex, and this part consists of the, this is gray matter and this is white matter. So these three layers, this is outer molecular layer, this is middle Purkinje cell layer, and this is inner granular layer. Okay. In the outer molecular layer, you can see the these are the pear-shaped cells are the Purkinje cells. This is single cell layer. From the Purkinje cells, the branching of the dendrites are forming a tree-like structure in the molecular layer. And with this tree-like branching of the dendrites, anastomoses these cells. So in the superficial part lies this stellate cells, and here are the basket cells. Okay, these are the two cells of this molecular layer, and fibers are the climbing fibers. See the climbing fiber going to anastomose with them. Okay, and the dendrites of the Purkinje cells. These are also ascending, and these are the granule cells. Granule cells, fibers from the granule cells are also lying in this layer, and they are forming parallel fibers in this molecular layer, anastomosing with other cells. In the Purkinje cell layer, only single layer of Purkinje cell bodies are there, and in the granular layer, you can see the actions actions of the Purkinje cells, which are only efferent from the cerebellum. They are passing through this granular layer, and you can see here you are getting the Golgi cells, granule cells, and the mossy fibers, and all these are anastomoting together to form a structure, rounded structure called glomerulus. Glomerulus of the cerebellum are lying in this granular layer. Okay, so glomerulus is formed by the climbing fiber, dendrites of these granule cells, and the action of the Golgi cells. All these are anastomosing together to form cerebellar glomerulus. Like glomerulus we have seen in the kidney capillary network. Okay. Okay, so molecular layer you have got cells are the basket cell and stellate cells. Stellate cell in superficial layer, basket cell in deeper layer. Fibers are, it shows numerous branching process of Purkinje cells, action of the granule cells and climbing fibers. So we have seen in the picture. Next, Purkinje cell layer, it consists of single row of Purkinje cell bodies and that are arranged between molecular and granular layer. Okay. Purkinje cells are large flash-shaped neurons and dendrites of the Purkinje cells arise from the apex of the flash and enter into the molecular layer. And the single action of these Purkinje cells arise from their base and passes through the granular layer and white matter to the cerebellar nuclei. Next, we are going to the granular layer. It lies between the Purkinje cell layer and white matter. You have seen the previous picture, and it stains dark with hematoxylin because of closely packed numerous small granule cells. And the cells of these layers are granular layer has granule cells and Golgi cells. We have seen granule cells are small neurons with round nucleus. Golgi cells are large and stellate cells. And fibers of this layer are granule cells has mossy fibers that bring information from pons to the granule cells, pontocerebellar fibers, these mossy fibers. And climbing fibers and actions of the Purkinje cells pass through the granular layer. And glomeruli, cerebellar glomeruli is formed here. Mossy fiber ends are dilated terminals and this dilated terminal is surrounded by dendrites of the granule cells and action of the Golgi cells. And this mossy fiber terminal with surrounding dendrites and actions form a light stained area in the granular layer and these areas are called glomeruli of the cerebellum. Okay, these are lying in the granular layer. Next is white matter. White matter is composed of fibers and neuroglial cells. See here, this is inner, these are the foldings, okay, foliums and these are the fissures, okay. This structure is pyometer covering of the cerebellum. So inside innermost this pink area, this is white matter, okay. Outside it is covered by pyometer, then pink staining area, this is molecular layer and these pink dots you are seeing here, these pink dots, these are the Purkinje cell bodies. This is single layer Purkinje cell layers. In histology spotter slide you have to identify these Purkinje cells, okay, and through these Purkinje cells you can identify it is a cerebellum, okay. So this is single layer cells. So Purkinje cell layer, then this dark portion, blue dots you can see, this is granular layer, okay. These are mainly the nuclei of different cells, okay. Golgi cells, granule cells, all those are nuclei are taking this bluish coloration. And innermost is the white matter, through it passes the fibers and the neuroglial cells are lying here. And see, this is enlarged view, this pink colored portion, this is molecular layer, here is the Purkinje cell layer and this is granular layer, okay. So this is from outside inward, molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer and this is granular layer and this part is forming white matter, okay. These three layers are part of the grey matter of the cerebellum. So cerebellum has outer gray matter or cortex formed by these three layers: molecular layer, outermost layer, cells are stellate cell, basket cell, fibers are dendrites of Purkinje cell, climbing fiber, parallel fiber. Purkinje cell layer is the middle layer, single row of flash-shaped Purkinje cells. Granular layer, you get it is the deep layer. Cells are the granule cells, Golgi cells. Fibers are the mossy fibers and glomeruli. And outer, this is outer gray matter, and inside there is white matter formed by the fibers and neuroglial cells. And what is glomerulus? Glomerulus is asked in your Viva table also. Glomerulus is enlarged terminal of mossy fibers plus dendrites of granule cells and axons of the Golgi cells. They are together forming this glomerulus. Okay. See here structure of the cerebellar glomerulus. Enlarged terminal of the mossy fiber, action of the Golgi cell and dendrites of the granule cell. Okay. All these are together forming the cerebellar glomerulus. So next we are going discussion of the individual discussion of cells. Stellate cells are located just beneath the surface of the cerebellum in the molecular layer. It is small neuron confined to the molecular layer, synapse with parallel fibers of the granule cells and confined to the molecular layer, synapse with dendrites of the Purkinje cells. Next is basket cells. It is located in the deeper part of the molecular layer. These are small nucleus and few dendrites, synapse with the parallel fibers, bodies of the granule cells, Purkinje cells, climbing and mossy fibers. And their action synapse with the Purkinje cells. So these two are located in the molecular layer. You have seen in the picture. Next we are going to Purkinje cells. They are forming Purkinje cell layer located in the Purkinje cell layer, and it is large flash-shaped cells, and they are dendrite form arborized in the molecular layer, form tree-like structure in the molecular layer, and their action is single action to deep cerebellar nuclei. Okay. Next, these granule cells and Golgi cells, they are located in the granular layer, and Golgi cells are mainly in the superficial part of the granular layer. So granule cells are small spherical neurons. Dendrites form glomeruli with the mossy fibers, and action runs parallel to each other and enter into the molecular layer. And for Golgi neurons, these are large stellate cells, GABAergic inhibitory neurons, and their dendrites enter the molecular layer, synapse with parallel fibers, and their action ends in the glomeruli. Okay, so these are the different cells of the cerebellar cortex. Okay, these cells can also come in you as a short note. Okay, different cells of the cerebellar cortex. Next, we are going to afferent fibers and efferent fibers. So first, afferent fibers. Cerebellum receives input from mossy fibers and climbing fibers. These two names you must know. These are the main efferents of the cerebellum: mossy fibers and climbing fibers. Climbing fibers, these are olivocerebellar fibers. These are actions arising from the inferior olivary nucleus, and they synapse in the molecular layer with the Purkinje cells, one fiber for one cell. Next is mossy fibers. These are other than olivocerebellar fibers. These include the vestibulocerebellar, pontocerebellar and spinocerebellar fibers. These mossy fibers have dilated terminals in the granular layer. They synapse with dendrites of the granule cells and actions of the Golgi cells. And this synapse forms light staining cerebellar glomeruli. Okay, you have seen mossy fiber terminals. Next, we are going to cerebellar nuclei. These nuclei names are very important. Okay, 4 nuclei are there. From lateral to medial is the dentate nuclei, emboliform nuclei, globose and fastigious. Okay, DEGF from lateral to medial. See this pars string-like structure. So these are the folium. Okay, folium, and in the depression is the fissure, folium and fissure of the cerebellum. So, and this inner white matter, within the white matter embedded gray matter structures are forming the cerebellar nuclei. So this is lateral most, this past string like structure, this is dentate nucleus. After that, this is emboliform, this is globose, and this is fastigious. These are the 4 cerebellar nuclei on each side, and these are masses of gray matter embedded deeply in the substance of white matter of the cerebellum. So first, dentate nucleus, it is the largest cerebellar nucleus. It has a shape like a crumpled purse and its hilus fades medially, and it is the nucleus of neocerebellum and highly evolved in the human. Next is emboliform nucleus. This is emboliform nucleus. It is oval. It lies lateral to the globose nucleus and medial to the dentate nucleus. This is the location. Next is globose nucleus. This is globose nucleus. It is rounded, lies between the emboliform and fastigial nuclei. Emboliform and globose nuclei are the part of the paliocerebellum. Okay. Dentate is part of the neocerebellum. These two, emboliform and globose, part of the paliocerebellum or spinocerebellum, and they are collectively called nucleus interpositus. Okay. This term is also asked in your viva. What is nucleus interpositus? Next is nucleus fastigious. Medialmost is nucleus fastigious. It lies close to the midline in the vermis, just dorsal to the 4th ventricle. It is spherical and it is the nucleus of the archicerebellum. Okay, most primitive. So this is enlarged view. So this is the cortex, gray matter, white matter, folium and the fissures. White matter, within the white matter you see this dentate, emboliform, globus, fastigious. Okay, and these are the cerebellar peduncle have been shown and midline vermis. Okay, understood? And see the via the cerebellar peduncle, the fibers are passing. Okay, efferent fibers are passing and afferent fibers will come. So next we go to the white matter of the cerebellum. White matter of the cerebellum forms the medulla of the cerebellum. It has typical tree-like branching appearance called the arbor vitae cerebelli. And the white matter consists of intrinsic, afferent and efferent fibers. Intrinsic fibers, they do not leave the cerebellum, remain confined to the cerebellum, connect different regions of the cerebellum. And projection fibers, they are afferent and efferent fibers, connect the cerebellum with other parts of the brain. And they are arranged into 3 large bundles on each side as superior, middle, inferior cerebellar peduncles. Okay. So cerebellum is concerned with maintenance of balance and equilibrium and modifies and refines all the body movements and makes them smooth and skilled. Hence the cerebellum should be connected to these centers. So the center which gives information about the position of different body parts, which give information of the motor activity, and the center which can modify the motor activity. So cerebellum is connected to these various parts of the brain and spinal cord via these 3 peduncles, superior, middle, inferior cerebellar peduncles. This inferior cerebellar peduncle, also known as restiform body, this is important short note. Okay, inferior cerebellar peduncles, or sometimes all the cerebellar peduncles together can come as a short note. Inferior is important most. Also, you will be asked about afferent and efferent fibers in the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Inferior cerebellar peduncle connects the cerebellum with the medulla oblongata, also called restiform body, consists of mainly afferent fibers and that carry the sensory information. Afferent fibers are these posterior spinocerebellar fibers from the ipsilateral thoracic nuclei, that is Clark's column of the spinal cord. Next is vestibulocerebellar tract from vestibular nerve and vestibular nuclei. olivocerebellar tract from opposite inferior olivary nucleus, and they form the climbing fibers, and parolivocerebellar tract from opposite medial olivary nuclei. Next is cuneo-cerebellar or posterior external arcuate fibers from ipsilateral accessory cuneate nucleus, reticulocerebellar fiber from reticular nuclei of medulla, and anterior external arcuate fibers from both the arcuate nuclei. Okay. Efferent are the cerebello-reticular fiber from both fastigial nuclei to the reticular formation, cerebello-vestibular fiber from ipsilateral flocculonodular lobe and fastigial nuclei of both sides to the vestibular nuclei, and cerebello-olivary fiber. So these are the three efferent fibers of the inferior cerebellar peduncles. Okay. The names you must know: cerebello-reticular fiber, cerebello-vestibular fiber, cerebello-olivary fibers. Okay, and for afferents also. See, these are the fibers. Okay, this is superior cerebellar peduncle connecting it with the midbrain, middle cerebellar peduncle connecting with the pons, inferior cerebellar peduncle connecting with the medulla oblongata. Inferior one we have discussed. Okay, so the green colored fibers are the afferents and red one are the efferents. So three efferents are there and green are the afferents coming from different areas. You have seen vestibular nuclei, accessory cuneate nuclei, reticular nuclei, this inferior olivary nuclei, arcuate nuclei, medial olivary nuclei. Okay, all these from their afferents are coming. And you can see here this middle cerebellar peduncles, it is carrying only afferent fibers. Okay, and superior one again consists of afferents and efferents. So these are the fibers for inferior cerebellar peduncle: afferent, efferent. Afferent is posterior spinocerebellar, vestibulocerebellar, olivocerebellar, parolivocerebellar, cuneo-cerebellar, reticulocerebellar, anterior external arcuate. Efferent are cerebello-reticular, cerebello-vestibular, cerebello-olivary. For middle cerebellar peduncle, only afferents, pontocerebellar, reticulocerebellar. Efferents are nil. And superior cerebellar peduncle, afferents are anterior spinocerebellar, tectocerebellar, trigeminocerebellar, rubrocerebellar, ceruleocerebellar. And efferents are cerebello-rubral, dentatorubral and dentatothalamic and cerebello-olivary fibers. So these are the efferents for superior cerebellar peduncle. Okay, so these are some interesting facts. So superior cerebellar peduncle consists of predominantly efferent fibers from the cerebellum. Middle cerebellar peduncle contain afferent fibers from the pons, cortico-pontocerebellar tract. And inferior cerebellar peduncles contain mainly afferent fibers from the brainstem and spinal cord. Action of the Purkinje cells, these are the main afferent fibers from the cerebellar nucleus. And mossy fibers are the most of the afferent fibers to the cerebellum. And for example, the spinocerebellar, vestibulocerebellar, pontocerebellar fibers, all these are forming mossy fibers. Cortico-pontocerebellar tracts alerts the cerebellum about the initiation of the movement. And olivocerebellar fibers from the inferior olivary nuclei form climbing fiber, another afferent fiber of cerebellum, and that reach the cerebellar cortex. And these fibers play an important role in performing learned new motor skills. Efferent fibers from the cerebellum mostly arise from cerebellar nuclei, and climbing and mossy fibers are excitatory to the cerebellum, and cerebellum mostly receive information from ipsilateral side of body and contralateral cerebral cortex. Okay. Next we are going to blood supply of the cerebellum. Okay. Blood supply is important for your Viva mainly. Okay. So cerebellum is supplied by three pairs of cerebellar arteries. Superior cerebellar artery, which is branch of basilar artery, anterior inferior cerebellar artery, which is branch of basilar artery, and posterior inferior cerebellar artery, branch of vertebral artery. These are the three arteries. Venous drainage is by superior cerebellar veins drain into straight transverse and superior petrosal sinuses, and inferior cerebellar veins drain into the transverse and inferior petrosal sinuses. Okay. Next, we are going to cerebellar syndrome. Cerebellar syndrome is important for your theory. Okay, comes in your long question. Some parts of the structures will be asked in your long question, and this cerebellar syndrome. This cerebellar syndrome is group of signs and symptoms produced due to lesion of the cerebellum. And this cerebellar syndrome also comes in your final year medicine. It is very, very important. You will see patients of these cerebellar lesions. So the components of cerebellar syndrome are divided into these three sets: lesions of archicerebellum or flocculonodular lobe, that is vestibular cerebellum, and lesions of paliocerebellum or spinal cerebellum, and lesions of neocerebellum or cerebral cerebellum. So what will be the symptoms? Lesion of flocculonodular lobe or archicerebellum, as the archicerebellum maintains the equilibrium, tone and posture of the trunk muscles with the help of inputs from vestibular nuclei. Its lesion leads to disequilibrium. Disequilibrium is characterized by unsteady or staggering gait. The patient tends to fall forward, backward or laterally on standing, and this is called cerebellar ataxia. Next is waddling gait. Patient stands and walks with the legs wide apart. Okay. And nystagmus. Nystagmus is involuntary to and fro oscillatory movements of the eyeball while looking to either side. Okay, involuntary movement of the eyeball, nystagmus. So all will be the result of lesion of the archicerebellum. Next is lesion of paliocerebellum or spinal cerebellum. As the paliocerebellum maintains the tone, posture, crude movements of the limbs by sensory input from spinal cord, this lesion will lead to hypotonia or asthenia of limb muscles. It will cause flail joints, lack of joint stability, pendular knee jerk. Tapping of the patellar tendon produces oscillating movements of the leg, and that is leg swings backward and forward. Okay, knee jerk you have read in your physiology. Knee jerk you have seen? Yes or no? No. Okay, so there will be pendular knee jerk. It you will learn during the medicine. Knee jerk. If you if you tap over the patellar tendon, the knee is extended forward. Okay, there will be extension of the knee joint in case of knee jerk, and this jerk occurs only once in normal patient, and if cerebellar lesion is there, there will be multiple jerks. Okay, that is known as pendular knee jerk. Next, there is cerebellar ataxia. Ataxia means disorderly in Greek, and there will be inability to maintain the balance while walking. Okay. Next, we are going to lesions of neocerebellum, that is cerebral cerebellum. As the neocerebellum controls the smooth performance of the skilled voluntary movement, its lesion will produce this. First is asynergy, loss of smooth movements. Movements are intermittent and jerky. Okay. Dysmetria, errors in measurements of rate, range, force, direction of movement. Past pointing, finger nose test. Okay, if you ask the patient to touch the nose, he or she will not be able to touch the tip of the nose. Okay. So this is known as finger nose test, past pointing, inability to touch the nose by finger, and patient overshoots or undershoots the tip of the nose. Next is intense and tremor.
Tremor comes on initiation on voluntary movement and disappears during the rest. Okay, that is known as intention tremor. When patient will go to do some work, there will be tremor. Next is dysdiadochokinesia or adiadochokinesia, inability to perform uh, respective alternating movements, that is supination, pronation of the forearm or tapping of one hand with other hand. Okay, the continuous repeating movements, patient will not able to do the alternating movements. Okay, next is dysarthria or scanning speech. Muscular incoordination produces slurred, prolonged, explosive speech with pause in the wrong place. Next is rebound phenomenon. Patient is unable to stop the action suddenly, and for example, if patient pushes some object, on sudden removal of the object, patient is not able to stop the pushing act. Okay, if you hold the hand like this and tell the patient to push your hand, if you remove your hand, then the patient will hurt own self. It will not be able to stop the hand. Okay. So that is rebound phenomenon. Next is hypotonia. It is diminished muscle tone, results in excess movement of the limbs. They are due to loose joint or ragdoll appearance. Okay. Next is lesion of vermis and paravermal zone, results in truncal ataxia and nystagmus, abnormal stance and gait. Next is lesion of cerebellar hemispheres. It results in ataxia and tremor on the ipsilateral side of the body. It produces nystagmus, intention tremor, delayed initiation of motor activity, abnormal stance and gait, hypotonia, dysarthria, dysmetria, dysdiadochokinesia, dysarthria, rebound phenomenon. All those lesions of the neocerebellum and others will get in lesion of the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay, so lesion of archicerebellum, cerebellar syndrome we are summarizing. So lesion of archicerebellum, it affects the trunk muscles. There will be disequilibrium, staggering gait, cerebellar ataxia, waddling gait and nystagmus. Okay, and lesions of paliocerebellum, afferent limb, affects the limb muscles. Here is trunk muscles, archicerebellum, here affects the limb muscles. There will be flail joints, pendular knee jerk, cerebellar ataxia. And in lesions of neocerebellum, affects skilled movements. Okay, there will be asynergy, smooth movement is lost, dysmetria, finger nodes test, intention tremor, dysdiadochokinesia, adiadochokinesia, and dysarthria or scanning speech, rebound phenomenon, hypotonia. All these are symptoms of cerebellar syndrome. Okay, you can be asked in your long question like this, you will be given these symptoms. Okay, so diagnose what has happened to the, which structure is involved in the patient. After that you will be asked question from there. Okay, so you have to diagnose from the symptoms that it is cerebellar syndrome, and then you will be asked other questions from the cerebellum. Okay, those phylogenetic classification can be asked, different nuclei can be asked. Okay, all those are important, and those histological picture, the three layers of the cortex, medulla, all those can be asked, the molecular, Purkinje, granular cell layer, and histology of cerebellum can individually come as a short note. So cerebellum is very important for your theory. Okay.